All right. So, hello everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Teachings and Ceremony that Guide Our Life Path, our webinar today. My name is Delana Arnold. I'm the Education Programs Manager for the Georgian Bay Biosphere. Miigwech, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. We are waiting for a few more people to trickle in. So to start, I'd like to share a little bit about the Georgian Bay Biosphere. We're one of 18 UNESCO World Biospheres in Canada. Our region is ecologically unique. We have the largest freshwater archipelago on Earth. The biosphere itself stretches about 200 kilometers as the crow flies from the Severn River in the south to the French River in the north. And it was officially designated a biosphere in 2004. We're a registered Canadian charity with our main administrative office in Parry Sound, and we rely on grants, partnerships, and donations to do our conservation and education work. So today's webinar is a part of the Community Nominated Priority Places project, of which the Biosphere is one partner. This project, the Community Nominated Priority Places, it's a special recognition by the federal government of the collaborative work that's being done for biodiversity conservation in this area. So this project and much of the biosphere and our partners' work, our ongoing work, attempts to incorporate what's called two-eyed seeing. And two-eyed seeing is defined by Albert Marshall as the ability to see from one eye with the strengths of Indigenous ways of knowing, and to see from the other eye with the strengths of Western ways of knowing, and to use both these eyes together. So it looks like most people have joined us now. We're going to jump right in. Some of us won't be sharing our screens during the presentation. So if you can't see people, don't worry. If you can't see who's talking, don't worry. It's supposed to be that way. And just a note that we are recording today's session as well. It'll be posted on our YouTube channel, and I'll send that link around to everybody after the webinar. So we'd like to request your presence with us at every moment in the webinar, and would therefore like to hold off on all questions and chats, and maybe keeping that chat box pretty empty so that you're with us and that you don't miss anything. Also, everyone who attends today's session, in an email afterwards, you'll receive a link for a meeting together on Friday at 10. And the purpose of Friday's meeting is to sort of address those questions. We want to provide an open space for discussion about the learning today. For many people, with respect to these topics, some things can come up for us later, and maybe we're more comfortable in a smaller space. So please look for that link in the follow-up email and join us on Friday. We'd like to acknowledge the land before we begin. We respect and recognize the inherent rights and governance of the Anishinaabe Pre-Confederation. We acknowledge the rights of the Anishinaabe as legally recognized in the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850 and the Williams Treaty of 1923. Indigenous peoples in the area are Ojibwe, Chippewa, and Potawatomi lineage. Mohawk people from the Haudenosaunee Confederacy also reside in the area and have historical connections to both southern and eastern Ontario. The region is home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples. And I will now turn things over to my lovely coworker, Midwaywe Kamagokwe, and our guest today, Waabkaniikwe. And I will turn it to you both. Thank you. Miigwech.
Bonjour, Midwaywe Kamagokwe and Dijnikas, Name Dodem, Anishinaabe and Dao, Chwanaga and Donjaba, Abading Mede, GBB, Georgian Bay Biosphere, Menadogami, and Doji Noki. Mwanjewe Manager with the CNPP Community Nominated Priority Place. Good morning, my name is Cheryl Judge, otherwise known as Midwaywe Kamagokwe. Good morning to everyone and for joining us this morning. I've mentioned my Anishinaabe Noswin, so my name, but also my clan, my community, which is Shawanaga. Anishinaabe Kwe is where I belong to, where I am from. I've also shared that I'm in my first degree of learning, and I've shared that. I also work for Georgian Bay Biosphere, Menadogami, so I've also been able to share that as well. Again, just like Delana, I want to welcome Waabkaniikwe for being with us today. And I look forward to providing more opportunities like this with community and our virtual community as well. So, miigwech.
Miigwech. Minogekajep Kinoea, Waabkaniikwe, Dijnikaz Megazed Odam, Wastoxing Donjava, Anishinaabe Kweyandao, Nijomadeo. My Anishinaabe nosewin is Waabkaniikwe. And I don't typically translate what that means because for some teachings, it's like you're boasting, but I'm not boasting because you don't understand the language, some people. And so I will explain to you what my name means. My name came to me from my great uncle and my great aunt. And when I was born with that name, Waabkaniikwe. And then my great aunt and my great uncle had a conversation and decided that that name was too strong to carry at that time because I was a baby. And so they then decided to name me Waabkaniikwe, which is very similar, but it's very different from the name that I carry today. So Waabkaniikwe is blossoming flower. And so when I was a baby, I carried that name. And then when I came into different learning, my cousin sought out my uncle for that understanding of my original name. And he then decided that I could carry the name that I carry today, which is Waabkaniikwe. And Waabkaniikwe means the strength of my family. Literally translated, it's a white bone woman. But what it's referring to is the bone marrow, that strength in the bone. That's the strength of my family that I am. And so I sit with the Miigwech, but I acknowledge the Waabsheshi, which is my mom's clan. So Miigwech is Eagle, that's my father's clan. And Waabsheshi is Martin, that's my mom's clan. And as my mom would say, the most richest clan is a Waabsheshi. And as Anishinaabe, we love our clans and we talk about our clans in a way that really shows the gifts and the beauty of our clan. And so for Miigwech, for me, I guess I do, give a buffalo call when I hear my clan, and I do tease my mom that she's living in a nest full of Miigwech, a Waabsheshi in a nest full of Miigwech, and she's real cute too, like a Miigwech or like a Waabsheshi. She's a lot shorter than I am. I'm 5'10", and so my mom's probably about 4 inches, maybe 5 inches shorter than I am. So when we walk around together, we really do look like an eagle and a martin walking around together. But I appreciate being able to come here today and to share the knowledge that I have gained over my lifetime thus far. And one of our teachings that we've been receiving and that I've been hearing a lot more is our Mikons, little roads teaching. And in that teaching, my Jishe, my uncle, he shares that within our lifetime before, we could see Halley's Comet 3 times. So that took us into living to be about 150 years old. I'm not sure I want to live to be 150, but I certainly want to live to be a nice, ripe old age. My great grandmother, she was 97 when she passed. And what a nice long life that was she lived. And that time that I got to spend with her and to see her, and she was 4'10", so we looked really funny walking around together. There was a huge height difference there. But the knowledge that I picked up from her, so she is one of my greatest teachers, my great grandmother. And I did have the opportunity to spend time with my other great grandparents. They lived with us when we were in Toronto, and so I got to visit with them too. And in our life cycle wheel, that's how we sit. We sit beside our grandparents, and we learn from our grandparents and our great grandparents. And our parents sit across the circle from us, and they nurture us and they love us. So I'm so thankful that I had that opportunity to sit with my great grandparents and my grandparents. My maternal grandparents actually lived with us when they decided to move to Parry Sound while their house was being built. And so again, I had time to visit with my teachers and my other teachers as well. I'll talk about them a little bit more, but what I would like to do right now is to offer a smudge, and it is a virtual smudge, but I will smudge the screen for you and I will smudge for you. However, if you have smudge and you're familiar with smudging, then I encourage you to smudge. And this is how we typically are encouraged to start our day, with an offering of sema, tobacco, and with a smudge. And if you're wondering what's a smudge, so this is a smudge, the smoke. But what we do with this is we cleanse ourselves. And why we're doing this is because you don't know what kind of a morning I had. Maybe I was running around all hairy canaried, or maybe I just didn't start my day in a really good way. But when I'm coming here right now, I want to spend this time with you, and I want to be clear. I want to be clean of whatever it is that I might have picked up. My only other resident is my dog. She's got pretty good vibes every day. So she's also 14. Here you go. There's your smudge. So that's just going to probably really burn real good, which is not a bad thing. When I was taught, when you have a smudge that is really going, that is really billowing, there's some really good thoughts happening. And so I can see that from my smudge right now, that it's going really nicely. And so there's some really good thoughts happening. I'm clearing my throat because I'm going to share a song as well. I'm a songbird. Not only am I Mi'kmaq bird clan, but I also like to sing. And I like to sing my prayers. One of my mentors and one of my teachers shared that Creator loves to hear song, and that song, prayer can be song as well. And so for myself, this is how I like to share, and have just started, not just started, I've been singing probably for like 20 years in terms of hand drumming and singing our lodge songs, but have become more comfortable with singing. And so I would like to offer a song. So what that song is saying is to speak your truth. And so what I've learned about our teachings is that our teachings are true. And our teachings are they have spirit at the center. And I made that song a while ago, and I haven't sung it in a long time. And so when I discovered that song again, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. This song came to me. And at that time, I was asked to participate in a production. And as I was getting ready to do that, this song came to me, because what that production was truth. For me, it was truth as I understood it. And so that song came to me, and I didn't end up doing the production. I didn't end up sharing that song in the production because I didn't feel like that's where it was supposed to be. And that's not where I was supposed to be. And so that was the song's debut. So I am going to share my screen and hopefully not flub this up. I don't know how to make that go away. Oh, here we go. Okay. So Anishinaabe Life Path, what I'm going to share with you today are teachings and ceremony, but mostly the teaching that I'm going to focus on is the creation story. And also I'm going to try to remember to talk about the Sweetwater moon, which is the moon that we're in right now. And as our Ninatik, the maple tree, is getting ready to share with us their gift, that sweet water that comes from them. So I've already mentioned my name, Waabkaniikwe, and I am from the Mi'kmaq clan. A little sidebar about Anishinaabe spelling is some people spell it phonetically, and other learners and teachers use what's called the Fierro system. And that's to standardize, I guess you could say, Anishinaabe Moin. And so you'll see different spellings of different words. I try to use Fierro. I don't know if I do it very well, but it's an attempt. So we're going to delve into Anishinaabe life. So as I had mentioned earlier, that we have teachers, and my teachers are my first and forever, my parents, sorry, are my first and forever teachers. And this is a picture of my mom and my dad. Obviously, my dad is on the bottom and my mom is on the top, and that's she's with her dad, with my papa. So these are my first and forever teachers. My dad's Anishinaabe Nosewind is Waab, and Waab it refers to a tree and how far a tree can bend and how far a tree can bend the other way. That's my name, my dad's name, and he really truly is that Waab. He has so much patience, and he is so resilient. The story that he carries really shows his resiliency in his life. And then my mom, her name is Waabkaniikwe, and she has to pronounce the gegig because that gigado is to speak. And so in her name, she is one that speaks for many. And so we tease my mom because she talks for many people. Like, she's an advocate. She's passionate about the work that she does. My parents are both social workers. I myself am a social worker as well. And that passion that my mom has for the work that she does. And when she's sitting at tables where there's an opportunity to advocate for our people, she does that. So she speaks for all of those people that she works with. But we tease my mom because she likes to also talk in general. So we tease her in that she speaks over many. And that's Anishinaabe humor. We like to laugh and we like to tease. So you might hear me crack some jokes as well. So my knowledge also comes from my community, and that's where it began for myself, was in my community. And I moved back to my community when I was about 7 years old. Yeah, 7 years old. And my parents decided that they didn't want to raise us in the city. We were in Etobicoke, that's where I was born. And my dad grew up here. My mom visited the community because it's where my grandmother is from. And my papa, my mom's dad, he's from Rama. And my dad's parents, they're both from here. But my grandpa Alan, my dad's dad, his family also, they're Potawatomi, and they come from the States. And so their migration is from the States. So my community knowledge, it comes from the people within my community, and also from the Medewa Three Fires Society. Medewa refers to kind-hearted people. And what this society is a preservation of our knowledge, preservation of our teachings and our ceremony. And so for myself, I have dedicated my life to sitting within this society and helping to preserve these teachings so that we can carry them on. As Anishinaabe, our history was done orally. That's how we would pass on teachings and pass on knowledge. And it is how we pass on teachings and knowledge today too, because we could attend a teaching 10 times. I've heard the creation story. I don't know how many times, but every time I've heard it, I've heard something different because I'm in a different place in my life. More recently, I'm a graduate from Laurier from the Masters of Social Work Indigenous Field of Study program. And while I was sitting in that program, I really needed to be filled with teachings. And thankfully at that time, Waabkaniikwe, Jim Dumont, he was invited to Midland to share the creation story for 4 months, once a month. And man, did that ever change my thinking about social work and incorporating, not even incorporating, but ensuring that teachings and ceremony, my Anishinaabe-ness was a part of that approach and my approaches as a social worker. And so when we think about psychology, we have Anishinaabe psychology as well. And so this is where that knowledge comes from too, where Waabkaniikwe also receives his teachings is from the Medewa Three Fires Society, but also he has his own teachers, and I can't speak to who all of those are, but he is one of my teachers, as well as our Grand Chief, who we can't say his name right now because he just passed, and so that was a big loss for our lodge. It's what we call our lodge of life, our teaching lodge, and he was our teacher. And so we can't say his name yet because he's still getting used to being a spirit. He's over in the spirit world. And when that year anniversary comes, we'll celebrate and we'll talk to him. We'll be able to talk to him. So he is also my teacher, and all of our lodge directors that sit within the Three Fire Society, they're also all of my teachers. Two of my greatest teachers from my community directly are my aunt and uncle. Georgian Bun is my aunt, and she's passed on. When you see the bun, B-A-N, at the end of a name, that means they've passed on, and so we acknowledge that by saying bun. And Bamasige Bun. So it's Georgian Bun. She was a teacher in our community, and she wanted to have our school, the foundation of our school, to be culture. So she actually created curriculum based on our teachings, based on the stages of life, based on our lodge and the different levels of learning that we have in there. As you heard Cheryl and I both mention, first and second degree. Although because I'm second degree, that doesn't mean that Cheryl's learning is any less than mine, because we both sit in that lodge. We just decide how much we're going to do. But as a first degreeer as well, she does a lot of teachings, she being Cheryl, Midway Kamigokwe. And she does teachings, she shares already, and we start doing that in that first degree. And second degree is saying that I know this and I can share this now with somebody else. And so that's the different levels of learning that we have. When we have 7 levels of learning within our lodge, and the 8th level is an honorary level, and that's the spirit level. And so our Grand Chief, he was our fifth degree, and that's a pretty high degree. And even for me to decide to move to 3rd degree might take me a little bit longer. So Georgian Ban, she really wanted our foundation to be culture. She wanted to know who we were as Anishinaabe. As Anishinaabe and as Anishinaabe Kwe. Anishinaabe in Ojibwe Moin, Ojibwe language, refers to original man. And it is literally original man, the translation. So we add the Kwe to identify ourselves as women. Within Ojibwe Moin as well, Anishinaabe Moin, We actually don't have gender. We don't have male and female. In our language is animate or inanimate. So you're either alive or you're not alive, or you have a spirit or you don't have a spirit. That's the other way you can think of it too. And Bamasage Bun has my uncle who decided that within our community, he wanted something different, something being other than drinking. And for himself and his family, he wanted that change. And so he brought our grand chief, he invited him into our community. And it wasn't just my uncle Bamasage Bun. There's a few other of my uncles who also sought that that different life that they wanted. Zagasige is another one of my uncles, John Rice, that also wanted something different too. And he was with Bamasage Bun in that learning. And Onabanese as well. He was also seeking something different. And they found our grand chief, or our grand chief found them, however you want to look at that. So those are my teachers, so that you know that my knowledge comes from, so you know that my knowledge isn't just, although we do have it written down, but it's not just coming from a book. I've actually gone and I've sat in ceremony, I've sat in teachings, I've sat with my teachers and have asked them to share knowledge with me, or I've had the pleasure and privilege to be there when there's knowledge sharing happening too. So I'd also like to share that all creation stories are true. That's not my quote, that's Onabanese. He shares that before we go into hearing the creation story. And why he premises that is because your creation story is true for you, just as my creation story is true for me. And that's to not judge our creation stories. That's to not compare whose creation story is better, because we all carry them at our center and we all carry them with love and respect and kindness. And so it's to not to have comparisons. So all creation stories are true. And what I'm sharing today are the concepts that are within the teachings, that are within the creation story that help inform our lives. And within the creation story, there's other teachings that can be told from that one teaching alone. And at one time within our creation story, we would hear it around this time, actually, in the winter months. Those are the months that we're close to home. We're not really bombing around, going here, going there. We're pretty close to home. And so we're hearing storytelling, we're hearing teachings. And that's how we pass down knowledge, even to our young ones as well. We passed on that knowledge to them too. So we would sit around this time and we would be sharing stories. The creation story is one teaching that can be told over many days, but that also all of our community members knew this story. So if I had started telling this story to you, and then we finished and we ended for the day, the next day, Midway Kamigokwe, she could pick up that story where I left off and she could share it with you, and so forth. And there are also, Onabanese shares, there are 84 songs that go with this creation story. And for me, being a songbird, that just obviously it just made me really smile. But also that just for me, that shows how beautiful that creation story must sound. And our songs are really beautiful, and they are really connected to spirit. So as you're listening, I encourage you to have an open heart and an open mind. If you have water, to take some. I have Makade Wabo, which is coffee. That's just really, it's called black water. That's the literal translation, because we didn't really have coffee, I guess, up in this. There's a longer version of that. But if you have water, to take sips as you're hearing this. What I was taught was, when we're receiving a teaching, we take that water, so that teaching comes into us and goes through us. So we already had a smudge. I smudged you. If you can mute your phone so that you can hear what's being shared. Sit, stand, move around, I can't see you. You can see me, and I'm standing because sitting is just too much for me and my sciatic nerve. And as Delana had mentioned earlier, to hold off on the questions. And if you do have burning questions, to write them down. But one of the other teachings that Waabkaniikwe had shared with us too is that as soon as you put pen to paper, you're no longer listening. And so to engage that active listening and hearing in what's being shared today. And also your question might be answered in what I'm sharing, but I don't know. So this is not a glitch. In the beginning, before the beginning, there was darkness. This is how our creation story starts. In the beginning, before the beginning, there was darkness, silence, stillness, coldness. But as I understand, there was still somethingness there. So that darkness didn't represent nothingness. This darkness represents somethingness out there, somethingness to be created. And for creator, creator thought, had many thoughts, and wanted to create something. As a part of our creation story, we hear that creator heard a voice. And what that voice said is, you cannot create thought alone. You have to have heart in that thought. As we're coming into this world, coming through our mom, our creator. Excuse me, sorry. This is one of the first teachings that we hear. We hear the creation story within our mother's womb. And within our mother's womb, we hear many teachings before we come into this physical world. And as a spirit understands Anishinaabe, but the intention to speak to the spirit in Anishinaabe Moen is there too. And when I'm working with individuals, we always feel like we have to have everything that is supposed to be there, but our intention is to have everything that we need there. And sometimes we can't. And so when we pray, when I pray, my intention is to say a prayer fully in Anishinaabe Moen, although I have words that I do say in Anishinaabe Moen so that the spirit can understand me. And so the same is for us when we're in our mother's womb. When we're in our mother's womb, we like to hear Anishinaabe. We understand Anishinaabe because where we're coming from, Ginajuange, the spirit world, that most beautiful place, that's where we come from understanding. So within the creation story, we are at the center of this creation story. And we hear that closer to the end of the creation story, but also that we understand that as a part of creation, as a part of when we were created as well, that we're created from love, just as that voice had said to creator, you cannot create thought alone. And what she meant by that was you have to have heart with the thoughts that you're having, because creator had all of these thoughts, and that's what this represents. Waabkaniikwe refers to the Milky Way, and if you ever you can Google Milky Way and it'll come up, and you can look in the sky too at night and see the Milky Way as well. And those are all of creator's thoughts. And so when we think about ourselves, we put ourselves at the center of that story. But how I like to think of it too is I stand at my center, and I'm a spirit, and I'm standing beside my heart. And when I look up, and if I'm standing at my center, I'm looking up, and I'm looking up into my mind, into all of my thoughts. So that's what's meant by we are at the center of this creation story. So for me, that's how I try to live. I try to be led by my heart, listen to my spirit, which is also intuition. So intuition might be telling you to go left instead of right. So you go left, and then something hopefully good happens when you go left. I've had that happen when I'm driving. I've had a route in my mind, and then something takes me a different way. And so I go that different way, and there might have been like, I used to drive on the back roads between here and Kitchener. So it's all farmland back there. And there might have been, like maybe like a farm tractor or a farm equipment on the road or something. There's just, my spirit spoke to me and told me go this way instead. And so that's also known as intuition. So as a part of our creation story as well, we hear that you are the most beautiful vessel creator ever created. We also hear this within the stages of life and now within the Mikons. Again, the Mikons is little roads. And Feather Carriers is an organization that is promoting life promotion. And the Mikons is one of the teachings that they share within that training. And as part of the Mikons, to understand that you are the most beautiful vessel creator ever created is sometimes hard for us to hear, but when we wake up, we're encouraged to wake up. And Richard Waabkaniikwe actually refers to this too. And he refers to taking that first sacred breath in the morning and taking that inhalation of that new day and just taking that in, almost like a meditation. If some of you meditate, props to you. Unfortunately, I guess I meditate over coffee. I really do contemplate, not life, but stuff over coffee. I think that's like my, maybe about the time that I start to wake up a little more. But anyways, sidetracked there. When we're hearing Mikons, when we're hearing the Mikons and we're hearing the Little Roads teaching, and we hear life promotion, what that means is we're promoting life. So instead of being suicide prevention, it's life promoting. And so we talk about that life promotion and how life can be for us. And so as a part of our walk here in this physical world, we're born with two gifts immediately. We're born with our name and with our clan. So even before we come here to this physical world, we already know who our parents are going to be. We have a helper that stepped forward as well to help us along this physical world and walking towards our purpose. And we come from Ginajuangay, that most beautiful place. So take a moment and think about for yourself that most beautiful place. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? I don't want to say taste, but maybe what does it taste like? Maybe you have food there. I know I would have food there. But what is it? What is that most beautiful place for you? And hold that image. That's the place that you came from. So when we're coming into this physical world and our name is called by Creator to come and sit with Creator, before we come into this physical world, we have that conversation with Creator. And we don't know how long we're sitting there with Creator, but we know that we're sitting there. And we see our whole entire life in front of us. But remember that most beautiful place that I asked you to think about, Ginajuangay. You don't want to leave that place. So sometimes Creator encourages us a little more to come and experience this physical life, because as a spirit, we can't experience the five senses here in this physical world unless we're physical, unless we take this human, this vessel. So that statement, you were the most beautiful vessel Creator ever created, that's what we have to remember as we're walking through life. That I am created with love, from love, that I am created with kindness, from kindness, and that I come from that most beautiful place, Ginajuangay, and that one day I will go back to that most beautiful place, Ginajuangay, and I will see all of my Gete Anishinaabe, all my ancestors. I will see them, but I will experience this physical world that Creator created. And Creator gifted us that ability to be able to experience this physical world, because Creator can't experience what she created. Creator for women is woman. For men, it's a man. He's a man, not it, sorry. So Creator for me is a she, and you might hear this differently. So when I asked you to have an open heart and an open mind, the same thing when you hear the creation story, maybe our Cree relatives, our Mushkegowuk relatives have a different different version. Our Haudenosaunee relatives, they have Sky Woman, and they have similarities within our creation stories. And so when you hear creation stories, to not compare those creation stories, but that to take them in. So we come from that Ganajuan and Creator has to entice us to come, and so Creator asks us, pick your doorway to come into this physical world. So we pick our mother. We choose our mother. We see our mother for the first time, and we think, I want to come into this doorway through her. And our mother obviously has a father, has a partner. And so our father is our mother's protector, Oshka Bewis. So as we're coming into this physical world and we're getting ready to come into this physical world, our parents, our father protects our mother so that that doorway is protected as that we're coming through. And from our parents, from our mother, we get our blood memory. From our father, we get our spark of life. So we have a balance. There is balance within all of our teachings. There is always that balance that we hear. And so from that, we carry those gifts that we get from our parents, and also the gifts that we come into this physical world carrying already. And if you've ever noticed a baby and they're holding, you see them sometimes and their hands are closed and they're kind of, looks like they're clenching their fists. They're holding their name and their clan. So when those are announced, then that opens up for them. Then their hands open up. And today our babies, thankfully, I say thankfully because I think it's the most beautiful part to who we are, is knowing our names, because that's a part of our purpose in life. And so our babies today, our Anishinaabe babies, are being born with their names because their parents are doing that work for them to find their names, or to not give their names, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. We don't have anybody give us our names, but we have somebody find our names, because Ganajuan, where we come from in that spirit world, we already have a name. Creator calls us by that name. And so we have a name finder who helps us look for that name, helps our parents look for that name. So when we come into this physical world, they can announce it, and it might not be right away. It might be the next day, the next week, maybe even the next month. I know I just read a post from my aunt who she didn't name her little boy right away. It was just his birthday, and he's not little. He's actually a father with 2 babies now. But she didn't name him right away because they were still searching for that name. So we have name finders. And that's also a part of the stages of life teaching. So our teachings are woven together. So within the creation story, as I said, it can be told over 10 days. And Waabkaniikwe has a Cole's Notes of it in 2 days. And if you ever get the opportunity to hear Jim Dumont, Waabkaniikwe is his Anishinaabe Nosewin. If you ever get the opportunity to hear him share that creation story, I encourage you to go, because the way that Jim Waabkaniikwe shares it is in such a beautiful way. Like, I can just envision when he's sharing it, I can envision all those parts to what he's sharing, and how the creation story, as I had shared, how it informs us is we know that we come from a place. We know that we come from the most beautiful place. We know that we are the most beautiful vessel Creator ever created. We know that we're a spirit here having a human experience. But we also know that all creation stories are true. And if there are, we have families that are blended. And so we have one parent who is non-Indigenous and one parent who is. They still carry two creation stories, and those are creation stories that are true to them. And our creation story, for me, what it's helped in a personal sense, how it's helped ground me is that I'm rooted in Anishinaabe intelligence. And with that Anishinaabe intelligence, I was born with that. I wanted to be seen and I wanted to be heard. Iwabamagi nondua. And that's Anishinaabe psychology as well. And as our young ones, what we understand about our young ones from hearing this creation story is that they're born with Anishinaabe intelligence, that they're not born empty vessels. They come carrying teachings already. And our parents can see what those teachings are. They can pick that up from them. And as I had mentioned, we all have a purpose here in this physical world, and our name and our clans can help identify what that is. For myself, I'm still walking towards my purpose. I do feel like part of my purpose is to carry these teachings and to share these teachings and to be an auntie. I have so many nieces and nephews, and I just love it. My little bird, though, she's my brother's daughter, Manado Benasis. I'm close to her, and my other niece, my big niece, I call her. She's also in her 20s, and she'd probably not really appreciate me calling her my big niece, but I call her my big niece because I have a little one too, and her name is Anungos, and they both carry their names. And actually, my older niece, Anungos, she just legally changed her name to Anungos Otajuan, Ototajuan. And so those are her Anishinaabe names. And so we come into this world and we already carry two gifts helping us walk towards our purpose. And actually, I was talking to my niece a couple of years ago, and she painted this as I was sharing the stages of life, not knowing and not having heard the creation story in a little while. She painted the creation story because in our creation story, there is also an asteroid that is referred to in the creation story. And that asteroid is actually the seeds that Creator sends here. And that asteroid is actually birds. So birds play a significant role within our creation story, in that they're knowledge carriers, so the seeds of knowledge, but also we can think of what seeds come from too, and that's food as well. So I just want to finish off with the creation story and how it can impact and benefit our lives when we're hearing it, and when we're walking or talk is what we hear people say, but when we're walking with our heart, when we're walking in a good way, we're walking Anishinaabe life. And for me, it's not a way of life. It's Anishinaabe life. I choose to live Anishinaabe life. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go and put up a wigwam in the middle of the bush. No, it's contemporary times. But I am going to carry my teachings. I am going to continue learning my teachings and to share those teachings. As Anishinaabe, we share. We like to share. So I'll finish there, and I'll move on to this time that we're in right now, and that's Ninaatik. Sorry, that's not the time. We're in the March moon, which is a snow crest. Unabene Gizis, that's the snow crest moon. But it's also, you'll hear different references to the types of moons. And so you can't actually find this book anymore. So it's going to be a teaser that I'm going to share it with you, because you can't can't find it anymore, but it was written by our Grand Chief, and it's called the Anishinaabe Almanac. So it gives you like an understanding of what each moon represents. But where the teachings come from are the women, and it's they're women's teachings. And so as women, we share those teachings, and men, they come and they sit and they hear those teachings as well to have that understanding, just as women will sit and hear men's teachings. For the men, they take care of the fire, as I had mentioned. The gift that we get from our Father is that spark of life. Well, that's the fire. And so we also sit and hear those teachings so that we understand them. We understand that responsibility, and we understand that balance. And so for Ninaatik is this time that we're in now, and we're actually going to really be warming up, which is kind of weird. I think it's going to be 9 degrees in our area, and that's when the trees are going to start running. And so at this time, we have our sugar bush people getting ready to do that work. And within my community, they started fixing lines. Like we tap the trees and we have lines. We produce maple syrup in Wasauksing, and we sell it. And so we have this huge, it's a real production now, real huge production in my community for making maple syrup. Before, it used to just be this real tiny shack, and you know, that you could see a little bit of lines running around in the bush, but now like you can like drive almost 2 kilometers and see the lines of where the sap is running through. And we give those trees a break. So we move around, because we don't want to expend all of the medicine, the mishkike that tree holds for us. Maple syrup, before we know it as being maple syrup and used for pancakes and cooking, and my dad uses it for coffee. We did boil it down way back in the day, but we also used the water, the sweet water, as medicine. That's medicine for us. And so at this time, we start drinking that medicine, and we pray to Ninaatik for that medicine that it's going to give us. And within Shawanaga, that's the bottom right picture there. You can actually see Cheryl and I standing together. We all have our hats and glasses on. It was a beautiful day. And Cheryl's dad, Joshua, a few years ago, or Josh as people call him, he shared this dream that he had with us. And it was the most beautiful dream that he shared with us, that he wanted us to do for those trees. He wanted us to pray for them, to bless those trees. And a part of that dream, I won't share all of that, his dream, but a part of his dream was that it was women who did that. And it was women in skirts. And so we're all wearing skirts. We wear skirts in ceremony. And part of my teachings is to why we wear skirts. And it's not to just identify that we're women, but it's so when Creator looks down, she sees us standing there in that circle. And that circle that skirt makes around us, that's how she sees that we're women standing there. And so he's seen that in his dream. And he also shared with us too that families would, at this time, they would go into the bush and they would start tapping these trees for that sweet water, for that Ninaatik. And so I was really honored that he had asked us to do that for those trees. And it was a really special day to do that too. There was lots of laughter, and you can see we have our nieces and our nephew there. And we're teaching them, this is how we take care of our medicine. This is how we take care of our relatives. Because Ninaatik is also a spirit, it's living. So we take care of that living spirit. And so what he asked us to do was he asked us to bless the trees. And so what do I mean by bless the trees? Well, what I mean is we went and we put sema down, tobacco, and we prayed for those trees. We prayed for that sweet water. And we only take what we need. And so Josh, when he taps those trees, he's done it for many years. So he knows what to tap, and he knows which trees need a break. And So he knows all of the logistics and the strategy behind that. And it also could be his clan. He's Name too. And so that intellectual part to him and knowing that. And so we went and we did that. And we're teaching these little ones now that there'll come a time when then they'll be leading this ceremony. And so we tried to make sure that we have a grandmother there too. And then a past year, we did have a grandmother, and she prayed to those trees in Anishinaabe Moin so that they would hear that prayer. We sung to them. As I mentioned at the beginning, I like to offer prayer through song. And so we sung Nebe, the water song. Nebe, that's the song that we sung to them. And we sung to them, we sung to their spirit. And what that does for us is it lifts our spirit up too. So at this time, we're getting ready for Ninaatik to share that gift with us, that sweet water. And so if you have the opportunity, I did notice a few years ago, I was in Bulk Barn, and there was a company from Quebec that canned the sweet water. So before it was turned into maple syrup, it was canned. So if you have the opportunity, or you know somebody who's tapping a tree, to ask them if they could have some of that, filter it first, because there's lots of stuff that can end up in that bucket you don't want to be drinking. And just to close off, I'd like to share another song, and I'll share that much about Ninaatik. I wasn't able to go into all of the moons because that's that's a session for each moon. It could be a session for each moon, but I'll offer this last song. Miigwech and Chimiigwech Gibajayig, Miigwech for joining me today and taking time to be with us. And have a good day.
Oh, miigwech, Waabkaniikwe. Again, I just want to thank everyone for being with us today, and miigwech to Waabkani for sharing all your love, kindness, and knowledge, and your experience in this human form. This vessel. It was such a. Every time we hear a part of the creation story, we take away a different piece of it, and I try to express that to those that are new in learning, but wanting to also learn as well. So miigwech for sharing that. And Delana and I encourage you, if you can take part on Friday. Friday is going to be an exciting day because we're all going to have our Makade Wabo or Nibi Shabo, which is tea. And so we're going to have a chance to sit around and be able to talk a little bit more about some of those questions or thoughts that you might have had today in sharing what you've learned. So that's all I have to share. Miigwech to Waabkaniikwe. And again, for everyone for being here today. And we look forward to offering more of these sessions with GBB Menadogami and in the coming year. Miigwech.
I couldn't remember if you had offered, if people did have questions who couldn't be there Friday, they could email them.
Right. Yeah, so if you can't partake on Friday, Delana, were you going to accept the questions?
Yeah, I'm going to send a follow-up email
Okay.
with the recording link and such, so I can include where to direct questions in that.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Okay.